Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. I hope everyone had a productive day. This is our last class of this week. We are into the home stretch for content next week. We'll be finishing up on the last couple subjects that we need to discuss and go over. Tonight we will be discussing driving emergencies, and if we have some time, we will start getting into driving in bad weather. So even though we are in the midst of the beginning of summer and warmer temperatures, we are going to talk about driving in snow at some point tonight, probably. So I'm going to let people to sign in, and then we'll get going in a few moments. How can we go from 11 people down to 8? There will be questions that you're going to have to answer today to make sure that you are taking notes and following along. I can tell that people have not been staying with the program. The other thing, too, I want to mention, because some of you did run into some snags with the Chapter 15 questions that I posted on Facebook. The testing site that I use is very quirky on spelling, spacing, and even sometimes when you spell it right, for whatever reason, they mark it wrong. So don't worry about your raw score. I just want to make sure that you look at the questions, you try to answer it. I can go back in and I can make adjustments. So I'm more or less looking that you got the majority of the questions right. I'm not looking for like an 80%. So if you're getting in the 40s and 50s, I can go back and see that you had like 4 or 5 questions that were right or close to being right, and I can give you credit for that. So I don't want anybody to freak out. It's a lot easier when I give a multiple choice test or questions because it's easy for them to correct it. When I did fill in the blank, which is part of a series of questions that the textbook provided me to give out to students, different worksheets that if you were in class, we would have been using. It would have been a little bit easier for me to hand it out to you as a worksheet piece of paper, have you hand it back into me at the end of class, and then at night I could go through it and grade it. Now this testing site grades it for me, but because of the mistakes that it has, I really have to kind of go back in and, okay, I got to hand correct this one. So hopefully this weekend I'll have a chance to kind of go back in and take a look and see what you really did. All right. I am booked. No driving for tomorrow. No driving Saturday. I think Monday is taken care of. I think the next time would be Tuesday, Wednesday, where I have openings. So I want people to start thinking about it. I may have some openings for some reason, no one wants to take it. And someone brought this to my attention. For some reason, the school schedule gives you a lunch and then an E period, which is kind of like a study. So someone told me in reality, almost everyone has an hour where they don't have to be in a classroom. My question is, why didn't any of you take advantage of that? I mean, even if we just made it 45 minutes and you just have 15 minutes to eat real quick, you would have been that much closer to getting more driving in. And if you would have done 2 of those a week, would have been an hour and a half. Did that for 2 weeks, you would have been up to 3 hours included into your driving time with me. Next week, since we're going to be finishing up all the content that we've got left to go over, I will be asking you to hand in your textbooks on Wednesday. All right. So I will be discussing that a little bit more. But Wednesday, I'm going to need you to have all your homework handed in to me because I need to collect the textbooks to give them out on Thursday or Friday of next week for the new class. All right. The other thing that I mentioned at the first week of class is part of completing driver's ed is doing 6 hours of observation. there isn't any observation in the driver's ed car as of yet. So all your observation is going to be watching your parents drive. So your parents have to sign off on it. So the next time that you drive with me, ask me for a copy of an observation form. I will give it to you. You have it signed by your parents. Take a picture of it and text it to me. That way I can have it in my file. All right. So next week we'll be, like I said, finishing up a lot of things, a lot of loose ends. If anything's outstanding, it will kind of prevent you from finishing up. I think there's going to probably be a handful of you. I'm looking, I didn't really sit down and take a look at my calendar and take a look at what my notes are on some of you, but I'm guessing there's probably 8, maybe 9 of you that I could probably get done by the night of the final. So that's my goal. So that's going to be almost half of the class. And the rest of you are going to have to do it the latter part of June and into July. So that's what we've got up ahead. So I hope that everybody signed in with their phone. As you could see last night, I tried to answer as many questions. So after class is done, if you've got any more questions, then we can answer that for you. Unfortunately, this topic, driving emergencies, is something that I don't think the state manual basically covered too thoroughly. So we're going to take a little bit of time. I like what the textbook did, and that's why I gave you questions last night from the textbook. So I really wanted you to focus in on what the textbook had to say. And now I'm going to kind of go over and highlight a few things. But for the most part, driving emergencies are something that you could go 5 years, 10 years without encountering any of these situations. But if they do happen, they want you to have a basic understanding of how to make things better and not have things get out of hand and get worse, if that makes any sense. I look at it more or less like learning first aid. You could take a first aid course or a CPR course and go your entire lifetime and probably never give anybody CPR. You could probably drive for the next 40, 50 years and you're never going to have the hood of your vehicle fly up in front of your face onto the windshield and crack the windshield. But guess what? If it does happen, you should have some idea of what to do. So that's what we're going to be covering. So what I want you to understand is that the steps that I give you are supposed to be somewhat followed in order. Could you maybe, switch step 2 with step number 3? Maybe. But on most of these, you should be following things in a chronological order. All right. So we're going to go from the most obvious, the most likely to happen, to some of the things that would probably never happen. So the first thing that I want to go over is running off the pavement. Whenever someone learns to drive, because it's a big vehicle, and most of the time parents will probably start you on parking lots and back roads, your first trip out onto a roadway, you're bound to be making some understeering or oversteering of the steering wheel into the turn. And for the most part, most of you probably have gone off the pavement at some point. Now, once you get your license, the reason why people go off the edge of the road, we talked about drunk driving or drug driving last night, but distracted driving is where people are taking their focus away from driving in their lane position, and they're finding themselves going off the edge of the road, and now all of a sudden panic sets in, and now they've got to get back onto the roadway. And if you don't handle it right, it can get pretty bad. So the first thing I want you to write down is that this is why I want you to write down both hands on the wheel when you drive. You really should. I understand if you're on a highway or on a road that's very familiar, if you've got one hand that's dominant at the top, maybe one hand that's just barely holding on to the side. It's not the worst thing in the world, or on a highway driving with one hand. But if you're in a situation with a lot of turns, bends of the road, unfamiliar area, really 2 hands on the wheel is going to help you handle any driving emergency that's going to arise. Now remember, when you do drop your tires off the roadway, you've got uneven amount of traction. 2 tires are going to be on the pavement, 2 tires are going to be off. So the car is going to pull in one direction. It's going to be pulling probably to the right because that is the side of the road more than likely that you're going to go off the edge of the road. Now, I'm not going to say you won't go off to the left. If you're looking at your phone, not paying attention, very well could cross the center line, go right through the oncoming traffic and into the soft shoulder on the opposite side. I guess it could happen. The other thing I want you to remember with all driving emergencies, so I want you to put this in your notes and I want you to circle it so you remember to study it. All driving emergencies should be a steering problem first, meaning you're trying to figure out how to make things better with your steering. Don't think of the gas pedal. Do not think of the brake pedal. In a driving emergency, always think steering first. I've got to get my car back where it should be before I handle my speed, whether it means going slower or going faster. Most people that go to the gas, go to the brake first, and then try to figure out steering have some major, major issues. Now, this is a typo. It says, do not step on the gas pedal suddenly or hard. That should be brake pedal. I don't know why I put gas pedal. It's not gas, it's brake. And when you do step on the brake pedal, it should be a very easy slowing down of the car. Nothing too abrupt. Because remember, you have people behind you. Yeah, they've seen you go off the edge of the road, but they still may not have appropriate following distance. If that's the case, they could hit you from behind. Now, if it's a situation that really startles you, I recommend you pulling over the side of the road to regain your composure. Most of the time when you go off the edge of the pavement and it says, whoops, oh, made a mistake. Oh, back onto the road. No problem. Okay, and off you go. You're no worse for wear, and it's really not that bad. It's not that of a major issue. The other thing that I don't have down here on my notes here, but I did want to mention is that if the drop-off is at least a couple inches, like 3 to 4 inches, okay, when you come back from the soft shoulder onto the pavement, there is a chance you could rip or tear the side of your tire. And there's a chance that you could get a flat tire. So be very careful about how abrupt you come back on and how much of a drop-off there is. Now, I also want to mention that there are 2 negative aspects of running off the pavement. Now, this would be extreme cases. In all the years that I've had students learn to drive with me, and we've gone off the edge of the road and had to get back on, we've never had any of these things happen. One is an oversteer, and the other one is that we can't regain control and we keep on going off to the right further, like towards bushes and trees and stone walls and guardrails. We've never had that. We've always been able to regain control and get back onto the roadway. Oversteer is where probably you're not paying attention, and when you do figure out that you've gone off the edge, you just jerk the wheel way too much to the left and you're crossing the center line. That's going to be a major, major issue. And I actually had a student, and I read the paper, I listen to the radio and watch TV. And you know, I told you I've been doing this for 35 years, so I'm bound to see stories of people that I've had in driver's ed that I had someone who, she was a passenger, her boyfriend was the driver, but they crossed the center line because their car went off the edge of the road and he jerked the wheel to get back on, and he crossed the center line and he hit someone head on, an older woman who had to be taken to the hospital. I think she survived, but it was a pretty violent crash. Let's take a look at what it would look like going off the edge of the pavement. Now, when they drop the car off the edge right here, it's almost level ground. And I think they did this for the video just to do it in a safe area. Eventually, I'm going to make my own video for running off the pavement, but I still haven't had time to do that. But this was provided to me by an insurance company.
Drifting onto the gravel shoulder of a highway can lead to a serious collision.
The uneven traction could cause you to lose control of your vehicle and send you into the ditch.
In this situation, don't make any quick movements. Making a quick change or abruptly moving back onto the pavement could send your vehicle into the path of oncoming traffic.
A head-on collision could occur because of overcorrecting. You should grip the steering wheel firmly and slowly ease off the gas, but do not brake.
When you feel you have control of the vehicle, check your mirrors, signal, and ease back onto the highway when safe.
If the drop-off to the shoulder is steeper than usual, slow down even more and steer back onto the pavement at an even sharper angle.
I should have mentioned that use your directional when you come back on. You would think that people saw you go off the edge, that they would stay behind you, but nowadays you never know. And I just want to put this out here as an aside that we had 3 people pass us today in the strangest areas. You would think that people would stay away from cars that have a driver's ed sign on, or if there's some type of a driving emergency. Never assume that people are going to help you out and give you room to do things. You always got to be watching for the unexpected. As I said, coming back onto the pavement could cause a blowout or a flat tire, which is a flat tire. So a blowout is sudden loss of air from your tires. Anything that you hit sharp, a curb, a pothole, anything extremely sharp like nails would sometimes be a slow leak. Glass, a very sharp piece of metal that's very, large would cause a blowout. But what I want you to underline or write down in your notes here is the second bullet. This is the most important thing about blowouts. Understand that when your front tire blows out, that is the worst tire to blow out, is the front tire. The back tires will always cause your car to what we call fishtail, and that's where you kind of, swing from side to side. But a front tire blowout is going to pull you to the left or right, depending on the tire that blows out. So the most dangerous front tire would be the left, because that is going to force you into oncoming traffic. The right tire, if you're on a multi-lane roadway, is going to bring you to the lane just to the right of you. So you need to hold the steering wheel very tightly. And when you see the word straight, I want you to think about stay in your lane. So write that down in your notes. Anytime on my test, on the final, anything that you see in the manual or the textbook, when it talks about straight, they're really talking about staying in your lane. They're not talking about linear straight. And we've had issues in the driver's ed car where I've had you drive around Dover and we haven't had to turn the wheel at all. And I say, this is a turn, put your signal on. And you go, this is not a turn. We're going straight. Well, the car is going linear straight, but we actually left the main road. So staying in your lane is really steering straight. Always take your foot off the gas pedal because it's a steering problem. So try to get control of your car. And by the way, the faster you go with a tire blowout, the more severe the pull and the more severe the fishtail. So you want to bring your speed down to regain control of your steering. And then when you do, then you can brake. Pull over the side of the road because you know the next task at hand will be changing a tire. Common causes, as we said, low tire pressure, hitting anything that's sharp in the road, potholes, curbs, all that stuff. Bad tires. And what I mean by bad tires, tires have a tendency to wear out not evenly, so that you may get a weak spot where there could be a bulge, looks like a little air pocket. So once you hit something really sharp on that little air pocket, it's going to pop it. Tire pressure, let's see. I don't think I did that. I don't think I did tire pressure. Let's talk about tire pressure, because tire pressure, you got to remember you're not putting the same type of air in the car as you do a bicycle, meaning the pressure. You're always putting less pressure in a car tire than a bike tire. So some of the things that they wanted you to remember here, and I got this from an article online, when it's cold in the winter, when the temperature drops by 10 degrees, you're going to lose what we call pounds per square inch, PSI, from your tire. Don't rely on the monitoring system inside your vehicle. It really doesn't give you an accurate reading, you should get a tire pressure gauge. And actually, let me get out of it because I've got one right on my desk right now. So I would hope that most of you know what this is. So this is one. I used to give these away when I get asked questions, but I've run out. I think this is my last one. But this is a tire pressure gauge. So this is what you put on your tire stem, and then it's going to give you a reading, and your reading is going to tell you, I don't know if you can. It's not even focusing. Oh, there it is. 25, 30, 20. So it shows you the PSIs on the side. I like the dial gauge rather than this little stick that comes out. I don't think this is much more accurate than what's inside your car. Know your specs. The best way to find what your tire pressure is opening up your door. And this is the second to the last bullet here. On the side of your door jamb or door frame, there's going to be a tag or sticker that's going to give you your accurate tire pressure that you should have. And know they're going to give you a couple different ratings, so know which one is which. Some are for the front, some are for the back, some is for the spare. So make sure you read real closely, and make sure you put the cap back on nice and tight, because there will be some leakage of air from your tire. And here's a worn tire. Okay, this is a tire that I saw at a tire shop, and they said, "Oh yeah, sure, take pictures if you want to take it." So someone was driving around on a tire like this, and I will guarantee that up at the top you can see that's probably where the blowout was, way up at the top. You can see the strands. So now if you drive on a flat tire, there's a good chance that the tire is going to come right off the rim. And you can see my shadow. I took a picture on a Saturday morning. I was driving with a student, and we saw this car off to the side of the road. I said, "Oh, pull over." Yeah, I don't know why we're having big lag spikes, but what you may have to do is just kind of stop the video for a little bit and then hit play again. So maybe, like loading, and it could be on your side. You may not have the bandwidth to really handle a lot of what is being handled here. So this is what you don't want to happen. You don't want this to be happening where you're riding around on your rim, because that is going to cost money. So when you get a flat tire, I don't know if it's just we have to worry about a flat tire. We also have to be worrying about the rim. So here the rim is probably going to be worn down on the edges. So you're going to have to do this. Tire pressure I don't have. Changing a tire. Let's see if this works. So even though these are commercials that were over in Europe, and that's why the word tire is spelt a little bit different than what we do here, uh, let's take a look at each commercial because each of them were based upon a true incident with changing a tire. So these things did happen and could still happen. So the first one, very safety minded, had the cones, had the vest, but the thing that he did not do is he did not pay attention to traffic. You just can't assume because you've put up flares and cones that people aren't going to still drive very close to those cones. So if you step even a foot or foot and a half away from the cone and you're not looking, you will get hit. The second commercial with the lady on the overpass, sometimes it's very difficult to loosen those lug nuts, so be extremely careful when you're pushing, pulling, and kicking to make that bar loosen your lug nut. Because if you lose your balance, you will fall to the ground. In this case, they had her go over the guardrail. And then on the last commercial, you should never go underneath a vehicle to retrieve anything. Even though that lug nut is very important for you to change your tire, you get something along like a stick or whatever to kind of to grab that and push it through the other side or drag it back towards you. But you should never, ever get underneath a vehicle because if it does go off the jack, if the car does go off the jack, it is going to crush you and kill you. And this wasn't changing a tire, but this was working on a vehicle. When I was in sixth grade, one of my good friends, his dad passed away because he was doing some mechanical work underneath the car and the jack let loose and he was crushed. And it's not a good way to lose your dad. It was very painful for my friend, and it could have been prevented. All right, so there are safety measures that you can do. All right, let's take a look. I think I've got it listed here. Let's get through this first. Okay, let's take a look at the steps to changing a tire. So this is really important. There are a few things that we're going to talk about tonight that you're going to probably have to do at some point in your life. Changing a tire is probably one of them. So first thing I want you to write down is look for a safe place to pull over. All right. You don't have to stop immediately because you could be in harm's way. So look for a driveway, a parking lot, a side street that's not as busy as the road that you're on. Maybe go to the breakdown lane, of course. Maybe a ramp is safer than being on a major highway. So look for a ramp up ahead because ramps are a little bit wider and it's all one way. So look for a safe place to pull over. Make sure everyone gets out of the vehicle. You want to put flares behind the vehicle. And if you don't have flares, triangles, or emergency lights, what you want to do is to have your passengers walk towards traffic and start to wave people down to go slower. They can help get traffic out away from you when you're changing the tire. Set the parking brake, and what trig the wheel means is always put something heavy in front of the wheel opposite the tire that you're changing. So it could be a large rock, it could be a piece of wood, something so when your car is lifted up at an angle, it's not going to roll and maybe go off the jack. Pry off the wheel cover. Now remember, when you're loosening up lug nuts, you're always going lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Some of them are pretty hard. So you're going to have to use a lot of muscle. And I always tell students, run the lug jack wrench parallel to the road and use your leg to step on the lug wrench to loosen it because your leg muscle will be stronger than your arm muscle. And you get to use your weight. When you do know where to put the jack, and I would recommend using the owner's manual to where the vehicle needs to be lifted up from, because you can't just put it on any part of the car. It has to be a very specific area on the car to lift it up off the ground. Then remove the lug nuts, keep them in your pocket so you don't lose them, and they can keep them warm in the wintertime. Lift off the bad tire off your car and replace it with a spare. Now, some cars don't have spares. You're going to have to call an emergency number and they're going to come out and tow you. I was looking at a vehicle this week and there was no spare. It was just a repair kit. So it's probably some type of inflatable glue that you put in through the tire stem, and it seals the tire to get you to where you need to go. Lower the vehicle down, tighten up the lug nuts, replace the hubcap. Remember to put the bad tire back into your car. You don't want to leave it by the side of the road because that would be littering, of course. But the other thing is you need that tire because when you get your new tire, you need that rim. The rim is what is important on a flat tire. It's not the rubber that is ruined. They're going to toss that and throw that away. But the new tire has to go on a rim. If you throw the whole tire away, you're going to have to get a new rim and a new tire. Now, I didn't do a real good job with expressing how to change a tire, so I figured let's get a professional, and he'll take you through the steps, and he'll even tell you a couple different things to do to be a little bit safer, but you may not have some of that equipment. So let's take a look at how to really change a tire.
Make sure your vehicle is parked in a safe location. A low-traffic parking lot or large paved pullout well off any busy street or road is ideal. Set the emergency brake first. If you have a manual transmission, put your car in first gear. If your vehicle is an automatic, just put it in park. Next, place wheel chocks or big rocks behind and in front of the tire opposite the one being changed. This will prevent vehicle movement and the jack from slipping while we work. Next, find your lug wrench, jack, and spare tire. These tools are often located in the trunk under the carpeting. Your vehicle's manual will indicate exactly where they are. This only applies if your vehicle has a hubcap. Many hubcaps just snap into place, but some are held on by the lug nuts. You can usually pry them off using something flat like a screwdriver. If your vehicle has covers over the lug nuts, be sure to remove them as well. Loosen the first lug nut by rotating the wrench counterclockwise just once without removing the lug nut entirely. Then, loosen the second nut directly opposite of the first one, and then the one opposite that, like a star-shaped pattern. If the lug nuts are tight, use your body weight to push down. Look in your owner's manual for where to position the jack. It's often under the frame near the tire with the flat, but not always the case. Our jack should be aligned with a thin seam line that runs under the vehicle. The factory jack has a notch cut out of it for a specific fit. Next, insert the handle and turn it clockwise to raise the car. Lower the jack if at any point your car seems unstable, and never ever get under a car that is only supported by a jack. Now, fully remove the lug nuts and place them in a secure location. Grasp the tire with two hands and pull it straight out. Then place it under the car. This is a precautionary measure just in case the jack slips. Remove any aftermarket accessories like hub rings at this point. The valve stem on the spare tire should be facing out. Then align it with the wheel studs and push it into the assembly. Tighten one lug nut by hand. Follow the same star pattern used to remove the lug nuts. Remove the flat tire from underneath the vehicle. Turn the jack handle counterclockwise and lower the vehicle. Once the vehicle is firmly grounded, fully tighten the lug nuts using your wrench, again in the star-shaped pattern. Remember to gather your tools back in place. Remove the wheel chucks and place your flat tire in the trunk. Lug nuts and lug bolts should be torqued to factory specs. You can also reach out to a local discount tire for proper torque recommendations for your vehicle. Finally, remember that spare tires are smaller and less capable than regular tires. They should only be used for limited short-distance driving. Visit your nearest discount tire.
Okay, I thought they did a very good job, and what I did not mention is putting the spare tire underneath in case the jack kind of falls off. the frame of the car when you're putting the new tire on. I thought that was excellent. I had never seen something like that before. And the other thing too is make sure the air stem is out. I actually had a student try to change a tire with me once, and I told him to put the tire on, and he put it on the wrong way. So don't ever assume. Okay, so you've got to think about these things. He was kind of confused why the tire wasn't fitting right. Well, he didn't have the tire stem out. Skidding is a driving emergency. We're going to talk about winter weather in a moment, but basically skidding is when you don't have traction of the roadway with your tires anymore, and your back end is usually the part of the car that's going to probably be skidding. With a front wheel drive, it's actually pulling you ahead. You can slide. I don't really call it a skid. You kind of slide with front wheel drives. But if you have a rear wheel driven vehicle like a truck or an SUV, you get a lot of power from those back tires, and you're apt to kind of what we call fishtail from side to side until you have control of the vehicle. So once again, remember, steering is the most important here, and you're always going to try to keep your front end in front of your back end. So I want you to write that down. A lot of people will say, well, how do I get out of a skid? You always want to steer towards where the back end is flying out. So if the back end, let me get out of here for a second. So if the back, if I can use, I'll use the back of a piece of paper, I guess. So if the car is sliding in one direction, you're going to be steering. That doesn't really look like it's going to help out too much. Maybe in my hand. So if it flies out to the right, you steer to the right. If it flies out to the left, you steer to the left. Okay, so that's the best way to do it. So if the back end goes to the right, you steer to the right. If the back end goes to the left, and I know it's opposite because I'm looking at the camera. So this is my left, but to you it looks right. So let me do it opposite. So if it goes to the right, you steer to the right. If it goes to the left, you steer to the left. So I think I got that right. Once you experiment with it, you basically know what to do. I very rarely have anybody that has some real problems with handling skidding. Don't really need to know much about flooded engines because we have fuel injection vehicles now, so we're not going to go over that. Wet brakes, let's go through that. Going through a large puddle, moisture gets on the brake pad and the routers, and you're not going to have the same type of effectiveness of your brakes. So if you hear some squeaky noises or it feels a little bit, soft or cushy feeling to the brake pedal, that means that there's too much moisture and you need to dry the brake. And by drying a brake, you're applying some pressure to the brake pedal with your left foot. So this is one of the times you use your left foot. So you're applying pressure with your left foot while you're still accelerating with your right foot, and that's going to create friction, and friction will heat up the pad and dry off the brake pad. And then you're going to have your brakes back to its normal functioning capabilities. But they're pretty well sealed now, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm not doing a lot of the videos here because I want to get to bad weather tonight. Brake failure doesn't happen a lot, but we do have a warning light on our vehicle that will tell us when there is a brake fluid problem or a brake problem. So look at your instrument panel and see if you have the warning light, okay? Because you're going to get the warning light probably before you start to sense any type of brake failure. Now, the brakes will somewhat work, but they don't give you full capabilities. So pump the brake pedal. And I believe this was a question from chapter 15 that a lot of people were talking about, that they had it wrong or they corrected it wrong, the testing site. But pumping the brake is probably the first thing that you want to do because you're trying to build up pressure in the brake line. And then the next thing you want to do is use your parking brake. Your parking brake will slow you down, but it does not stop you. So your parking brake is a hand brake that's between two bucket seats. If you don't have it there, then look underneath the dash, and then it's a pedal. And right near the pedal, there will also be a release. So make sure you pull up on the release so you don't lock up the back tires. Now remember, your parking brake, emergency brakes are for your back tires. That's what is getting locked up. So you could go into a fishtail. Another good thing to do is to shift to a lower gear. Go to, in the driver's ed car, it would be B. In your car, it could be SRL or 1 or 2. That is a lower gear that gears the engine down to a lower revolutions per minute. So it does slow you down, but it doesn't stop you. Make sure people know that you have brake problems. So you're going to flash your lights and beep your horn, especially when you're at an intersection, stop sign, traffic light that you may have to go through. If you can't stop the vehicle, all right, look for something that you can hit that has some give to it. So small trees and bushes and mailboxes are much better than telephone poles, fire hydrants, and parked cars. So the other thing that I want you to write down in your notes is that anything that you hit to slow your car down. Now, granted, you have to do this because you're afraid that you're going to go through an intersection and maybe get hit head on or T-boned. But anything that you go off the side of the road to hit to slow you down and stop you, you're going to have to replace. So if you hit a fire hydrant or a telephone pole, that is your bill to pay. So you better have good insurance. And that's what we're going to talk about next Tuesday is insurance. If for whatever reason you are able to get control of your vehicle and slowly stop it, turn the car off and call for help. Do not try to drive from that point. I've in all the years that I've been teaching in many driver's ed cars, I think I've had at least 7, 8, maybe 9 driver's ed vehicles. I've only had one vehicle that had brake failure, and it was here at Oyster River, and it was coming down Code Drive. Once we got to the parking lot at the high school, we had to get the car towed. And it was a costly repair because it was linked to the computer system. So the computer system kind of shut down, and I did not have automatic or power brakes any longer. It was just standard brakes, but it was very difficult to stop the car. If for whatever reason that it looks like you're going to hit something, try not to hit it head on. Okay? Try to stop as quickly as you can. No, I told you this, I think the first week of class when we're talking about the brake pedal. You cannot break the brake pedal. So hit it as hard as you can. You want to lessen the impact of whatever you're going to hit. Sometimes, not all the times, look for something off to the right. Like I said, something that's got a little bit of give to it, like a bush. I drive in people's lawns. I would drive into a field. I would look for anything off to the right to slow me down. Never, ever go to the left because oncoming cars may be pretty close by. Sideswiping things will reduce impact, chance of injury. And sometimes if you see something's happening, you might be able to speed up and just miss it. Especially if you're pulling through an intersection, you could see someone's going to run the light or run the stop sign. Maybe by kicking the gas pedal as much as you can, you're going to zip and zoom through the intersection before you get hit. So it probably would be the least thing that likelihood of the thing that you're going to do, but it is something that is possible that you may have to use. Try never to get hit on both sides. This is a car that was kind of crushed by 2 semi-tractor trailers. I put down sometime you just have to be lucky. So that man is alive. He's not dead. But someone took his photo before they pulled the trucks apart. But doesn't it look like, oh my goodness, how could he survive that? So he was not in a very good position. So try not to get hit, especially on both sides. Vehicle overheating does happen quite often, especially more so in the summer months. So write down, engine overheating happens a lot in the summer because of the heat from the outside, and your car doesn't have enough coolant or antifreeze in the radiator to keep it functioning at the right temperature. So there's probably some type of a leak in the hose, or you haven't filled up your radiator or reservoir tank, and your needle is going to show that you're overheating. At that point, what you need to do is to turn your heater on. I know it seems really strange. Well, my engine's heating up. Why am I putting the heater on? Is you're trying to get the heat away from the engine and bring it into the passenger compartment. So by doing that, roll down your windows, turn the heater on high, and you'll see the needle will somewhat go back to normal for a little bit. But while that is happening, I'd look for a place to pull over and try not to drive any great distance with an overheated engine because it will ruin. Remember, heat is the worst thing for your engine. Metal does not like heat. Metal will actually start to warp and bend, and this is where you're going to lose seals. Rubber will start to degrade in high heat situations, so all your hoses are going to maybe get really soft and crack, um, or get brittle. I should say soft. They'll get brittle and then they'll crack. That will lead to a leak. So be careful. Maintain your car. This is why it's so important when you get your car inspected every year to have them check your engine to make sure everything is looking good. And filling your radiator up is not a difficult thing to do. I should probably do a quick video on that. So you just open the hood, look at your owner's manual, and they'll tell you where your radiator is and how to check the fluid level. There's a reservoir that will let you know whether you're getting low or not. It's pretty easy to do. I mean, all of you should be able to figure this out. But it's just getting used to your car and knowing where things are. And that's why I wanted you to do that worksheet of knowing your vehicle. I don't think I did the overheating. Vehicles don't usually plunge into water. A lot of people think you're going to go over the bridge and then your car is going to, drop 30, 40 feet and then you're going to submerge in water and you're going to drown to death. It doesn't usually happen. It's when you're driving near a river or a creek and your car goes off the road and it drives, into, a river more than a lake, something like that. But remember, the vehicle will go nose first. It will float for a while. Surprisingly, as heavy as it is, it will float for a little bit. So try to get out as quickly as possible. If you're in your seatbelt, you're more likely to get out. Because people that go off the edge of the road, it could be like drunk driving or being hit. So if you don't have your whereabouts, it's very easy to get disorientated, not knowing how to open the door, how to crack a window, and how to get out. But try to go where there are air pockets, which is usually near the back of the vehicle. And if you have anything sharp in your car, try to break the window. You can't break your front window, but you can break the back and side windows. And that may be a way for you to escape your vehicle. I don't know if this is coming up or not. Let's see if it's here. I'm going to see if it's coming on the next slide. Well, here's a good case of a car going off a small bridge. And my question is, why isn't there a guardrail on this bridge? But a car slipped off the bridge right here and went into the water. So you can see it's not a real emergency. You should be able to get out, but it will scare you. And it looks like the water would be real cold. Oh, here it is. I always like using articles that are local. So this was I live in Rochester, and I actually knew Sarah. This happened in 2015 where she passed away. Sarah and her mom used to go to the same church that I went to, and she sat a couple rows behind me. And when she was, I believe, 11, her and her twin brother were ice fishing with their dad up in Merrimeeting Lake up in New Durham, New Hampshire. And the car hit a soft spot of ice, and the car cracked the ice and submerged into water. The dad and her twin got out. She was in the back seat, and they couldn't pull her out. And it says here in the article is that she was trapped in the freezing water for 40 minutes. So I believe most of it was submerged. So she didn't have oxygen. So this was what happened. So you do want to get out of a car. And by the way, cars dropping through ice is pretty common. So if you're going to be out ice fishing or out on a lake in the wintertime with your vehicle, you better make sure that the ice is thick enough to handle your vehicle. But she couldn't communicate after this because of the lack of oxygen. She had brain trauma, unfortunately, and she could only communicate by what they call an alphabet board, where she would point to letters and spell out what she wanted to convey. And it was sad that she had to live the rest of her life in a wheelchair like that. But good family, but a terrible, tragic thing to happen to her. Headlight failure is usually a fuse or the bulb is gone, so make sure you pull over to the side of the road. This is why, like I said, I wanted you to get to know in your owner's manual how to check to change a bulb, how to check for a fuse to see if it's a fuse that's causing a problem for headlight failure. So look at the owner's manual. This is where, now we've got our phones. I should mention that. Even if you can't find your owner's manual, it's amazing what you can do with Google. So if you have a headlight that's out and you're wondering what's the real problem, you could Google, okay, how to change a fuse of a headlight, how to change a headlight bulb. All this stuff we can get right on our phone, which is kind of cool. But you're also supposed to have it printed form in your glove compartment. So look at your owner's manual. Stuck gas pedal, back probably in the 2008, 2010, Toyota had a recall on vehicles that were having acceleration problems. People were going to their brake pedal to stop at a red light, and the car was still accelerating, and they couldn't stop the vehicle from moving forward. Even though they were on the brake pedal, the car was lunging forward, and they were hitting cars, going through intersections, getting T-boned. The big thing here that I want you to know is that if your gas pedal is stuck and it's making you accelerate, the first thing that you do is what they've got listed here second, is to shift to neutral. Once you shift to neutral, the acceleration will go away because you're no longer in a gear. You're in a neutral gear, so there's no acceleration. Then your braking will take place. You can still brake in neutral. You just can't accelerate. So it's important to pull off to the side of the road, turn off the engine, restart it, see if the problem still exists. If it does, then it's a major problem. Call. And I didn't mention this tonight, but I'm a big proponent of having some type of roadside service plan. I'm a member of AAA. I know some car companies, if you buy a new vehicle, they give you certain car care support. So they'll come out, change a tire, bring gas to you, do other things to your vehicle. So depending on the car that you have, you may already have it with you. So just make sure you ask your parents, do we have any type of roadside help if I ever have a problem? Because think about it, you're going to be driving by yourself quite a bit. Getting hold of mom or getting hold of dad doesn't always happen right off. Your dad's in a meeting, your mom's at work, and she's not using her phone. You're going to be left stranded for a while. So having AAA come out and help you is a big plus. Well, let's take a look at a stuck gas pedal. I do have a clip on that.
Although it is a rare occurrence, your Toyota may experience a sticky accelerator pedal. You should pay attention to the operation of your accelerator pedal. If the accelerator is harder to depress than normal or slower to return, it may be a precursor to a stuck pedal. These vehicles should be parked and a dealer immediately notified. Okay, what should you do if your accelerator pedal sticks? Although it is a rare occurrence, we thought you should know what steps you should take in the unlikely event that it did occur. If your pedal sticks and won't return to its original position when you take your foot off of it, step on the brake with both feet using firm and steady pressure. Don't pump the brake pedal as it will deplete the effectiveness of the brakes. Then simply shift into neutral, that's N for neutral. And firmly apply the brakes to make a controlled stop on the side of the road. If your Toyota's transmission has a notched shift gate and you're driving in sport mode, step on the brake with both feet using firm and steady pressure. Simply nudge the shifter to the right into drive, D. Then forward into neutral, N. And firmly apply the brakes to make a controlled stop on the side of the road in a safe area and shut off the engine. Drivers who cannot put the vehicle into neutral should turn the engine off. This will not cause a loss of steering or braking control, but the power assist to these systems will be lost. If the vehicle has an engine start-stop button, firmly push the button down for at least 3 seconds to turn off the engine. Do not tap the start-stop button. If the vehicle has a conventional key ignition, turn the key to the accessory position, or ACC, to turn off the engine. But do not remove the key from the ignition, as this will lock the steering wheel. If you experience any issues with your accelerator pedal, please contact your dealer without delay. If you are not experiencing any issues with your pedal, Toyota is confident that your vehicle is safe to drive. Thank you.
All right, so that gives you an overview of the problem that Toyota had. Power steering failure, you're still going to get some type of steering capabilities, but it's going to be very difficult to make turns. What it basically does is it makes it back into a rack and pinion steering, which is non-power steering. So at lower speeds, you're going to have to use both hands and crank it very hard to turn right or turn left. Once you start moving, it's pretty easy to make some slow turns at around 15 miles per hour, but below 15, it's going to be really tough. And the other thing too, power steering sometimes is related to your power brakes. Same on the computer system here, so you may have a hard time braking. So restart the vehicle, see if, like on a computer, if you can reboot it up and it kind of, brings everything reset to its regular factory presets, and then it may solve the problem. This is why computers are such a tricky thing on cars now, because it may not be a mechanical problem, it could be a computer problem, and it's a lot easier for people to fix a computer problem. Hood flies up, as I said before. You're going to go a lifetime probably with this never happening. This is where you just stick your head out the window and try to guide yourself off to the side of the road. I'll show you quick. This is I think this is in another country, but here's a hood flying up. So you can see he was driving down the road, and probably what happened is he checked his oil or he did something to the engine, and when he dropped the hood, it didn't click. There's a safety mechanism that will hold the hood from flying up like that, but apparently he didn't get it to that point. So you can see it comes up, it hits the windshield, it cracks the windshield. You can't see too well. And notice the camera that he had on the windshield actually dropped down because we saw people inside the vehicle. I'm not going to go over through some of this stuff. You're not going to really have to know this. I do want to go over this, and I do want you to write this down. This is going to be a question on the final. Whenever you have a mechanical problem and you've got to deal with it, whether it be a flat tire, loss of brakes or whatever, you need to put your car in a position where it can be seen for at least 200 feet. So pull well off the road so your car can be seen at least 200 feet. Don't do it around a corner. Don't do it just over a hill. You want to give people time to move away from where you are because you could still be out in the road a little bit. Turn on your emergency lights or parking lights. Now, the difference between the two, parking lights let people know that you have the situation under control. Emergency lights, you're asking people to pull over and help you out. All right? So if you don't want anybody to help you out, don't put your emergency lights on. They still may stop if they see parking lights, I should say. But emergency light is really like an SOS. It's really telling people, I've got a situation. I can't handle it. I need help. If you don't have electrical power and you don't have the use of your emergency lights, then a white cloth, red in the wintertime, would alert people that you have a problem. Stay with your vehicle till help arrives. Let me just talk about this for a minute because we'll talk again about it when we talk about bad weather. Is that if you are on a back road all by yourself, I don't care if you're male or female, but being a teenager, I would not trust anybody. So I would be very careful about who you have come up behind you to help you. So I would stay in my vehicle. I'd call my parents and I would have my cell phone out. And this is what I would do. If you are left stranded all by yourself, you should always, if someone pulls over, you should put your camera up out the window, okay, inside your car so it's pointing out. So you could take a picture of the license plate or the person that's walking towards your vehicle. If the person is going to come to your vehicle, set your camera up someplace where you can either record the conversation or take a video of what is happening. It's amazing how many people have been abducted or things that have happened and they have no clue of how to catch the person that has done this. So put yourself in a situation where people know where you are. So if you have a mechanical problem, first thing you should do is call your parents. Second thing is set things up where you're safe. Stay in the vehicle, crack the window so you got some fresh air, but do not let people reach in, into your vehicle, and just let them know help is on the way. But we'll talk more about that in bad weather too. So, and we talked about flares front and rear of the vehicle. Oh, jump starting a car. This is besides going off the side of the road and changing a tire, this is probably one of the most important things to know how to do. So in your notes, what I want you to write down, when you have a dead battery because you've left your headlights on, or you've played the radio too long while you're sitting talking to friends and you've drained the battery down to nothing, okay, you're going to have to get your car jumped. So how do you jump a car? You need to get a car that has a functioning battery so it's able to run, so a working vehicle. They have to get within a couple feet of your vehicle, and you need to take jumper cables. And with jumper cables, you have to take the connections where you go from positive to positive. So that's red with red. So write that down. Positive to positive is the red terminal. And that's the red part of the jumper cable. And then you're going to go negative to negative or negative to the frame of the dead battery vehicle. All right. So that is going to be how you jump a car. You're going to start the car that's good. You put the cables on while both cars are off. Okay, because you don't want to get shocked. Okay, you don't want to be dealing with live electricity while you're connecting to the car. So turn off the vehicles and go positive to positive, negative to negative, or negative to the frame. Start up the good vehicle, and then try to turn the car on of the vehicle that has the dead battery. Let the battery charge for a while. Don't take the cables off because you still don't have much juice in that dead battery. Let it stay connected for a while and just run and juice up that battery. And I did do a video clip of doing that because my pickup truck had a bad battery. So I said, what better teaching technique is to have my son help me do a video. So we did a video of jumping a car. So this is...
Success.
So you can basically see that it doesn't take too long to do. Now, granted, that's a video, But I would probably say from start to finish, it should probably take you 5 to 10 minutes maybe to do when you really know what you're doing and you've got the cables and stuff. So, and by the way, it wasn't any lights that were left on. My battery over the winter was just getting old and it wasn't holding a charge. So I not only had to jump the truck, but I had to replace the battery because it wasn't holding a charge. The next place I went, it was a dead battery. So I knew it wasn't anything that was left on for accessories. Vehicle on fire doesn't happen that much, but the thing I want you to realize is that if you ever smell smoke when you're driving, pull over to the side of the road, because where there's smoke, there's going to be fire. Something is heating up. Something is not right. There is electrical wires in your vehicle. A lot of times they do get shorted out, so don't be surprised if you do start to smell the odor of smoke. Okay, and if it looks like it's getting worse, then of course call 911, and they'll get the fire department out there as quickly as possible. I don't think you have to put the fire out, that you're not going to have anything like that in the car. I thought that was kind of foolish that they say put it out with a fire extinguisher. I don't know anybody that has one in the car, or a blanket to put a flame out. That's crazy. Okay, let's get right into driving in bad weather. So we got a little bit of time so we can start this. It seems kind of strange that we're dealing with 70, 80 degree weather, and we're going to be talking about driving in snow, sleet, and snow, ice, and sleet. There we go. There's 3 types of winter weather we got to be worried about. But let's take a look at this picture for a minute. It says, what a mess. This is actually in Massachusetts. If we went around and counted the cars, we could probably, right off the top of our head, probably count at least 6 or 7 cars that look like that they've been hit or nearly been hit. And then we've got at least 6 or 7 tractor trailers. So we know it's a big mess. It's a traffic jam. The problem, and I want you to write this down. So this is what I want you to remember about driving in bad weather. Driving in bad weather is basically based on 2 problems. One, people were going too fast for the driving conditions. So write that down. Speed for the conditions. And the second thing I want you to write down is following distance was wrong. All right. So I want you to write down speed was too fast. Following distance was too close. I could care less if you've got 6 inches of snow on the ground. There is a speed that you could probably still safely get to where you're going to go. Just because the road says it's posted at 55 does not mean you're driving at 55. You may be driving 20, 25 miles per hour. That is the safe speed where you're still able to turn and brake and drive. That's the new speed. Most of the people say, oh, most people going 25. I think I could go 30, 35. I've got a big truck. I got a Jeep. I got four-wheel drive. They're the ones that are going to be stuck in the ditch or whatever. There comes a point where all cars will not have contact with the roadway. Your responsibility is to find where that speed is and stay below it. You never want to match the speed where you start to lose control. You always want to be driving slightly below where people are losing control. So if you look up ahead and you can see people skidding and sliding all over the place, you better in your mind start thinking, I can't get up in that area going the same speed they are, or I'm going to be just like them. And following distance, you have to change your mindset. You cannot be 3 to 4 seconds behind. It's going to have to be 5 or 6, much, much more. So if you do slip and slide, you've given yourself some time and some room to get out of trouble. Now, as I said just a moment ago, there are 3 types of winter weather. There's ice, there's sleet, and there's snow. So I want you to write ice, sleet, snow, and put 1, 2, 3. That is the order of severity. It's the worst thing to do is to drive in ice. Ice is where you're almost just driving at a crawl. Sleet, you can go a little bit faster. Snow, depending if it's dry or wet snow, you might be able to drive regular speed on dry snow. But wet snow, probably dropping your speed by 10, 15 miles per hour at highway speeds. So let's take a look at ice. Ice by far is the worst. So let's take a look at ice.
An expressway slick with ice, black ice, thin, nearly invisible to drivers. The ice has caused a car to crash in the fast lane. Trooper Jeff Oken parks his cruiser to prevent a pileup. A But behind him, drivers are approaching way too fast.
Of course, they want you to buy the video because they wanted you to see what basically happened. But we know what happened. They were going too fast. They weren't able to get out of the lane, so they're going to hit the police car. Okay, that shouldn't happen. And the term black ice is where the ice takes on the resemblance of regular pavement. Okay, snow we can see because of the color. It's the opposite of black. So we can see where there is snow. And sleet tends to build up and get kind of grayish. So we can almost see where there's sleet on the road. But black, which freezes really hard and solid, will have a tendency to be forming off to the side of the roadway. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to show you some people that don't know how to drive in bad weather. So remember, ice, sleet, snow. Here are people all over the world driving in bad weather. I get a kick out of it when I watch this video. So let's just watch 2 minutes of this.
I'll tell you, baby, we can go for a ride if you're hungry. I'm searching for the streets tonight. Look at your hotel. What if I showed you how I'm getting off of you? Baby, I think it's alright. And you know, can't baby. Way too fast till the dawn when the world takes you back from the past and we're shattered. But this is what it's come to. And I push and you drive that risky life on the street of the night where your love comes down. Oh, it's something that you can hang on to.
So you get the idea of people just don't know how to drive in bad weather. I thought that was kind of funny, especially people that are telling people to slow down. I kind of like this sign: drivers ignoring winter conditions may be subject to natural selection. And that is so true. Those that are good drivers will continue to drive well and not have any issues driving in the winter. But for those of you that don't know how to drive in winter weather, you're going to have reoccurring problems after every snowstorm because you will not learn from your mistakes. So this is why it's important to have a basic understanding of what to do in certain weather conditions so you do not still repeat some of these basic problems when it comes to driving in winter weather. All right, so let's break things down. So the first one I want you to write down is ice. Ice, where is it found? Usually, because we know roads are banked or crowned. Remember, crowned, it's higher in the middle, it slants off to the side. If it is banked, it's high on one side and it slopes continuously to the opposite side. you're going to find more ice over near the white edge line. All right, so write that down. Ice is more towards your edge rather than towards the center of the road. You're going to find it more in areas where there are large pine trees, where the sun doesn't really penetrate and thaw out the road. Those areas are going to stay cool and cold and freeze up and stay frozen a lot longer. The other thing you should write down with ice is that ice is really more of a problem in like November and like February, March. So at the beginning of winter and from November, December, and then February, March. Okay. That is when we see it warm during the day and then it drops. And that's where you're going to see the ice. It's going to be forming overnight. It's going to still be around when you go to school in the morning. And then as the sun, beats on the ground and the temperatures warm up, then you're going to thaw out and not have a problem. So November, December, February, March are the two times of the year where we see more heavy ice conditions or bad ice conditions. Where should you drive on the road? Away from the white line. So if we find ice over near the white line, we want to be over towards the yellow. So you want to be left of center. And if cars have driven in front of you, you want to basically stay in what we call tire marks of cars that have driven before you. And then the big question is, how fast should I drive if I know that people in front of me are driving on ice and they're having a bad situation? They're starting to slip and slide. As I said earlier, look at the speed that you think they're traveling. Go slower than them. I would say on the safe point, I'd say under 15 miles per hour. If you know the road is super icy, a lot of people are having problems. 15 is good. Below 15 is good. Because think about it. And I want you to text this to me, okay, so I know that you're still here. 15 miles per hour. So text 15 miles per hour to me is the speed where if you hit something, like the bumper of the car in front of you, 15 miles per hour is when the airbags deployed. If you hit something at 10 miles per hour, the airbags do not deploy. So right now, write 15 miles per hour and text it to me. That way I know that you are still here. So I can keep a list of who's dropped off in the last few moments. The next type of weather condition that I want to go over, I thought this was kind of interesting because when I said early morning until it kind of warms up, so this is probably taken around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the day, and you can see where there was rain or moisture and it formed on the speed limit sign, and as it started to warm up, that ice just slipped down, okay, the sign, until it's going to probably be off in the next few minutes. I thought that was kind of a cool looking sign. You can actually still see the imprint of the speed limit, which is super cool. The other thing, too, I want you to write down about ice is that bridges freeze first because you've got air circulation, which is cold above and below the bridge. And remember, bridges are made of metal, and then we put pavement on top of it. So it's going to hold and retain the cold temperatures a lot longer, and it's going to get cold a lot easier. So when you go over a bridge, especially early in the morning, late at night, where temperatures start to drop, you may start to see a freezing of the surface of the roadway. And this is another reason why we put temperature gauges inside cars now, so we know when we're getting close to the freezing point and driving may be a problem. So pay attention to the indicator on your instrument panel that you're driving close to the freezing point. Sleet. How does sleet different than ice? It really is ice that comes from the sky. It could rain and then freeze in the morning, so that's ice. But when rain is coming down and because of the atmosphere, it starts to freeze up, that's when you're going to run into problems. And it's really a lot like ice. It's going to be a traction problem and a vision problem, where ice is only a traction problem. So you got to keep your defroster on, heated, and you've got to make sure your windows are scraped when you come out to your car in the morning or after school. You want to make sure that you have good visibility looking around in the inside and the outside of your vehicle. Where should you drive? You should probably drive, like I said, with ice, you should drive to the right side of the road or drive in the tracks of where other people have been driving down the road. Remember, tires heat up. So your tires are going to actually form a little like a rut in the roadway in bad weather. And you can even see it in the rain too. So you're going to try to track your vehicle with the tracks of the cars that have gone before you. So stay within those tracks. You're going to probably have the best ability to grip the road and handle any type of bad weather. Now for the most common type of winter weather, what we drive in is snow. And as I said earlier tonight, there are two types of snow, wet snow and dry snow. So in your notes, write down wet snow is a lot worse than dry snow. Dry snow, because it's so cold, will kind of blow away. It will not adhere and stick to the roadway. Wet snow will get stuck in the grooves of your tire, and you're going to just keep on spinning your tires at stop signs and traffic lights. And the thing that I want you to remember about tires that are spinning, you do not get traction by going faster by pushing down on the gas pedal. So write that down. You do not get better traction by spinning your tires. You actually do the opposite. You make things worse. You get things heated, it ices up, and it stays slick. What you want to do is to put your car into a lower gear. Remember, there is a gear below drive. This is the gear that you, if you're stuck, you want to go into, and you want to lightly accelerate. You want to lightly accelerate and see if your car will pull yourself out of the situation that's preventing you from moving. So this is where you're being smart now, okay? Also set traction control on your vehicle. Make sure you push the button so your tires are actually gripping the road at the best possible place on all four tires. So one may be slipping, but it's giving more power to the other three. So snow is a traction and a vision problem, so make sure you've clear. And by the way, it is illegal to drive with any measurable snow on the hood, roof of your trunk of your vehicle. You've got to clean your car clean. And so you could get pulled over, and the police, if they're nice, they'll make you just pull over and clear off the snow. I'm not sure about how much the money fine is, but it is a fine. It's probably under $100. So and I've seen the campus police do it in Durham. I've seen local police in the area do it. Usually at the beginning of the winter season, they have a big campaign of reminding people of this law. What's the speed you should drive? If it's dry snow, you could probably drive close to the speed limit if it's dry. If it's wet, like I said before, try to go about 10, 15 miles below the speed limit. If you see people in front of you having problems with that speed, then drop it down a little bit low. But this is, once again, where you're monitoring what you see and you're being smart about it and you're not driving into trouble. Never drive into trouble. Okay, so if you see a roadway where people aren't able to get up, look to see if there's any side streets you can take so you don't get to be part of that problem. If you become stuck in the snow and you can't get out, call for help. Make sure your phone is charged up. Make sure people know where you are. I always tell my kids when you're out in the wintertime, I want to know where you are, who you're with, what's the routes you're going to be taking home from the movies or home from your friends. So if I had to come looking for you, I know what roads that you're going to be traveling on. So if you slipped and slided off the road, I'll have some idea of where I should be making checks. That's just being smart. So you should always try to do that. The other thing, too, is make sure your phone is fully charged. I know sometimes we get into areas where we don't get good cell coverage, but it would be horrible for you to be stuck someplace for hours and you can't get help from anybody because your phone is not functional. So just remember that. This is not real. I kind of like this because I always make people believe that there's a place in the world where snowbanks are like 30 feet high. But you know what? When you start driving and they push snow to the end of your street and they pile it up, it's probably higher than the top of your vehicle. And it's going to seem that tall. And it's going to be like, oh my goodness, I can't pull out from this side street. I can't see. Exactly. This is why you have to do those safety stops. And do the legal stop first, I should say. Do your legal stop and then inch out. Because you do not want to commit going into a turn if you can't see. Now, this next picture is actually a real picture. Okay, notice that the snowbank on the left where the truck is higher than the roof of the cab of the truck. That's got to be at least 10 feet high snowbanking. That's got to be at least as high as a basketball hoop. Okay, that's pretty high. So when you get to the end of that road, okay, it's going to be kind of tough. And notice he's got better traction on his side of the road. He's got tires that are on the pavement, where whoever took the picture here, there's only snow packed in where other cars have driven. So you're not going to be getting good traction right here. There's a good chance if you're going up a hill, you're going to spin your tires at some point. It looks somewhat level, so it may not be quite that bad. So what are the suggestions for driving in the winter? My big suggestion is always go someplace and start to feel what your car feels like when you start to lose control. So get a feel for slipping and sliding. Go to a parking lot, go 15, 20 miles per hour, slam on the brakes, see if your car can stop or how long it takes to stop. Go 15, 20 miles per hour and then try to make a quick turn. Try to go around in a circle and see if the car will slide out and see if you can get it going facing forward again. It's a lot better for you to experiment in a parking lot. Now, don't go crazy because that's going to call attention to yourself, and the police are going to call. Someone's going to call the police, and they're going to give you a hard time for fooling around in a parking lot. But you can always say, I'm just trying to learn how to handle a car in bad weather. And it's a smart thing because you don't want to be driving on a main road in the winter and start slipping and sliding and really not know how to handle that feeling of the car losing control. But some basic things should always apply. Stop earlier. Here it says 3 times the distance. Yeah, at least that, maybe more. It's all in the condition of the weather. But start off slower too, from stop signs and traffic lights. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're speeding up too quickly. Make sure your tires in your car is in good operating condition before winter time. So right around Thanksgiving, you should have your car looked at by a mechanic. Make sure the tires are good, your antifreeze is up to snuff, that you got a blanket and a scraper in your car, you got some sand, you got some gloves, anything that you're going to need dealing with driving in bad weather. Carbon monoxide poisoning, I do want to mention just briefly, is that if you're digging out your vehicle from a driveway and you're running it so the defroster's getting hot and de-icing the windows and stuff like that, you got to make sure that the back muffler is clear of any snow, because if it's backed up and the muffler can't let the exhaust come out from the back of your vehicle, all that bad carbon monoxide gases are going to be leaked back into the inside of your vehicle. And when you get in your car and drive away, it's going to start to affect you. It's going to make you feel tired, fatigued, maybe a little sick to your stomach, and you could actually pass out if the levels are quite high. Carbon monoxide poisoning is very, very dangerous. And I don't have the article here, but I used to have one of a 10-year-old boy was helping his dad dig out his car from a parking spot in Boston. And the plow went by and really plowed it in pretty good, but it also plowed in the back part of the vehicle. And the boy was so exhausted from shoveling. The dad says, well, get in the car because I got the car running. It's warm and whatever. Well, they didn't clear off the back of the vehicle where the exhaust was. And when the kid closed the door and got into the back of the car, within a 20-minute, half-hour period, he had passed away. His heart rate and respiration had dropped so much that he went into cardiac arrest. And the dad was digging snow, not realizing that his son was dying in the vehicle. Sad story. I'll see if I can find it. But it's a serious problem. So crack your window in the wintertime, even when you're driving sometimes, especially on an older car. That way you can get fresh air in the vehicle. All right. What I want you to do, I think we're right about where I want to end. I'm going to start up next week, finishing up bad weather, and then we'll get into insurance on Tuesday. Make sure that you read Chapter 13 in Responsible Driving in Section 3. So in your notes, what I want you to write down, I just lost my train of thought. I just had a text message come up. I forgot what I was going to say. Couldn't have been too important, right? This topic on the final, there's going to be at least 6 to 8 questions. So when we're dealing with 100 questions, it's a fair amount. So alcohol and bad weather are going to have some serious questions. So make sure that you've taken good notes and you've read the manual and the textbook, because this is a real important section, because driving in bad weather, you don't want to make any mistakes out on the roadway where it could lead to injury or death. Same thing with alcohol and drugs. It's a big thing. So next week we're going to finish up this subject, and we'll get into insurance on Tuesday. Wednesday will be on highway driving and driving with motorcycles, large trucks, and pedestrians. And then a short period on Thursday, because we're not going to have the final on Thursday. We're pushing that to the following week. We're going to talk about distracted driving. And I'll also give you some review questions that you could take a look at and study over the weekend for the final. So we're on our homeward stretch. We are so close to finishing up. I know most of you are looking for drive times. Unfortunately, it's just the way that it is. Now, I looked at the school calendar. The nice thing to know is that the last week that we have class, you get out at noontime. So we've got from really like 1 o'clock till 6 o'clock to drive with a lot of people that don't have free studies. So if a free study does come up where study skills let you drive, ask if you could drive. Okay, you're at the end of the school year. Maybe you don't have to study for any particular subjects, and they'll let you out. So if you can drive during lunch and E period next week, let me know. I'll do that. And like I said, if they let you go from study skills, I'll drive then too if they let you loose. Who knows what will happen, but we'll try to make the best of it. That is it for tonight. If you got any questions, make sure you text me the questions. And I apologize for the lagging. I have no idea why. I've turned off everything that I've got in my house. That I don't think my son tonight is doing it. Doing any gaming upstairs, but sometimes that may drain it, the bandwidth or whatever. But that's it. That's it for tonight. Have a great weekend.